Nietzsche talked about the Dionysian a lot. He wrote about Dionysus, and specifically, he talked about the Apollonian and the Dionysian, and how when those two come together in a person, you have the birth of tragedy. That it's in our nature to find this place and to experience tragedy. He was a musician, artist, poet, prolific writer, and he's well quoted by just about everybody, including modern day physicists and panpsychists. He talked a lot about concepts that are now seen as possibly scientifically accurate. Consciousness being at the bottom of all things. He he was a very tragic figure. A lot of people are not aware of his sister abusing him in his older years, taking credit for things that he wrote, publishing them under her name. Evidently, she was discovered for this, and the records were corrected. But times are tough for everybody, even the famous historical figures. But he was digging deep into these concepts of Dionysus. He was connected to this thread that is now passing through us. Bacchus has a rich history, and people have paid tribute to it in numerous ways for thousands of years, just as we do today. When I discovered this religion, when I discovered this spirit, this idea, I realized, well, this is something that I'm already interested in. I'm already taking part in these things: the wine, theater, nature, changing your consciousness, personal discovery. And so it just seemed like a natural fit. I didn't realize exactly what it would become, but I think a lot of people are going to be able to connect to this because they're already doing it. I'm just trying to guide you towards the more spiritual side of this coin. So how do we pay tribute to Bacchus? These spiritual roots that we can connect to within ourselves. Well, this isn't a fanatical religion. This is not an eschatological faith. This is just a low-key religion. You can take it as far as you want. You can get into the ritualistic dancing and really try to lose yourself in that spirit that Nietzsche was talking about. But there's no rules. There's no guidelines. You're going to have to connect in the way that you connect, and it's going to be different for everybody. But pay a visit to a nightclub, experience the theater, try to perform, try to have control over your consciousness through different ways of changing it, either through taking something or meditating. There are so many ways to pay tribute. And in doing so, you can reach a different place than the standard fare of everyday life. We all face tribulations. Everyone in history has. We're going to experience all of these troubles. We're going to see the horrors of the worst things that people can do. We're going to experience some ecstasy and some pleasure, love, hate, all of those things. But when you get into humans and the bizarre things that we're able to accomplish and create and experience, you have to sort of break it down a little bit deeper. We have these bodies and these experiences, but we're not the only ones acting on these bodies that we have. If you've noticed, it seems as if there are forces acting on you that you're not even aware of, that, I mean, if you are aware of them, it's still acting on you. For instance, with children, or with anybody, but let's start with children. Children are, right, you're making a copy of yourself. It's not you, but it's certainly a copy of you. And then, of course, evolution takes its course, and changes are made. Changes are made to your copy by time, by experience, by culture, by situations. And I think that people have missed a real simple truth about children. They're able to teach you a lot of things about what has been placed into your consciousness by your experiences in life, by the people who raised you, and by the people who surrounded you and shaped you, and all the things that happened. And they do this by asking questions that you asked other people when you were little. And it's very likely that a lot of the questions you asked when you were little were not answered. You were either ignorant, or maybe you got answers that are still in your consciousness, but buried deep down there. And you won't remember all of these answers that you were given, because they're so, they're from so long ago. So when your child, or if you're raising a child, if that little person asks you questions, you're going to say, I remember asking this question. And then you're going to say, wait a minute, what answer do I have? And if the answer is not one that you like, now you can rewrite that into your consciousness. Now you're not just telling the child something that you didn't get the answer to, but you're also sort of rewriting your own consciousness. And so a child helps you almost travel back in time and rewrite your your basic wiring. It's just part of this process that a lot of parents take for granted. They're so focused on providing, and a lot of the times they're overwhelmed by a sentimental feeling of protection. But I think you should really consider, you know, taking advantage of this opportunity to experience all of those questions again, and notice, well, like what is it that you really believe. You're going to discover your own beliefs through the questions of the child. And we're when I was saying we're acted on by forces, we're acted on when a child, often will test the parent and will see what's possible. And they're not necessarily, I mean, if you look at the children before they're really, their mind is not quite developed, and so they're almost just acting on instinct, and the forces that are acting on them, it's like a pure instinctual version of a person. And so then you're really going to see those forces acting, and a lot of the forces that act on us are contradictory to what we probably would want for ourselves. So if a child, if the child, for instance, if a child finds itself doing things that they're not supposed to do, right, breaking the rules or whatever, there are forces acting on us all the time that make us do things that we would rather we weren't doing. There's addictions, there's habits, there's there's ideas in your head that are making you think, why did I do that? The child will be told, why are you doing that? You're not supposed to do that, and they don't even know why. And that's because the forces acting on them are the things doing it. We can be placed into a trance by these forces, not just through hypnosis, not just through the experience of being part of a group and getting that group sensation. There's all sorts of forces that are acting on our bodies, including your own awareness. So your awareness is trying to act on yourself, but yourself is being acted on by many forces. You could call them trance, because we know trance is real. If you want to see evidence of a trance, look up Darren Brown ice bath, and you'll see a person doing something that could only be done if they were in a specific trance state. A trance is just when a person is in a highly suggestible state, and a suggestion can act upon their body in a way that they're not even able to act upon for themselves. We have all these little tricks, all these little things that we can discover. This is not new. Anton Mesmer discovered the trance, the hypnosis, back with, he called it animal magnetism. And it was useful because they didn't have anesthesia. And so when they needed to do surgery, or they needed to heal psychosomatic problems with a person, this trance state would allow a person to have the suggestion act upon them. And we can go into a trance for any number of things that can be acting upon us. Like when you think about the horrors of war. Well, before I get into that, I just want to finish with just to help the kids out. So the kids are going to do the opposite of what the parent wants sometimes. And they're doing the opposite specifically not because they're trying to, but because there are some strange forces acting upon them, making them do the opposite. And you have to make them aware that these forces are acting on them. and that they have to then use their awareness to 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 try to overcome these forces that are acting on them. And so when it comes to the god of war, that's a way of saying that the person that people are capable of things in war that don't seem possible when you're in a normal place and you're just talking with friends. It doesn't seem possible that people could go and burn people alive, dismember them, rape of entire hundreds of thousands of people. If you look at the history of war, it's a trance. It's a force acting upon the body that is not the person. Their awareness is there, and they're aware that it's happening, but those forces are in control, and you're in a trance state. And so the best you can do is be aware of all of these forces acting upon you, and try to guide yourself as best you can, knowing that you're competing with all of these other things that are trying to act upon you. Imagine all the people who are just driven by lust or driven by fear. And when I say driven, remember, this is a trance state. You can be literally driven by that state. And then, of course, you can commit the most horrific atrocities that we can imagine. And we've seen it. We've seen it, and we have it today. It's not just the history, it's the present. It's going to be in the future. So we have the solution, but it's not a guaranteed solution. It's just the best we got. It's the awareness of these factors that are affecting us. If you want a good example from the theater of what it means to really be be honest, to be cooperating with your children, to let them know how important it is that you're a team, that you can trust each other, that you're communicating. Otherwise, horrible things can happen. Watch Leon the Professional. Watch how a girl can be affected by the people who are raising her. How she can be affected by her feelings of love, hate. Watch The Road. Watch the atrocities that people are capable of when they're starving and desperate, and when there's no order. It's you can show your child how important it is that you're honest with each other, that the child is aware of the things that people can do, and how to be ready and to protect themselves from these things that humans can become, these trances that they can go under. There's nothing that can teach quite like a great film, because you're experiencing it through empathy, and you're experiencing it through your emotional journey, through with the characters. And those movies both have an interesting, lesson about the ultimate demise of one of the people in the situation, you know, father son or father daughter. That the child needs to understand that they can cause great harm to their parents by not being honest, by not communicating, by not having a trusting relationship. There's not just damage that a parent can do to a child, which we know happens all the time. There's some strange power that takes people over, makes them abuse children the way, you imagine a person with a puppy abusing the puppy, just torturing it. that's, it's defenseless. It has no idea of reality. It doesn't really understand what's happening, and you're just harming it. And we've seen this throughout history. We've seen religions systematically harm children and then protect the people who did it. We see today people that are capable of raping children, and they do it. They always have a rationalization. There's always a justification. Their awareness is difficult to even imagine. It's, you know, there's not a lot of good answers to these things. So the honesty with your child, to really understand that those questions they're asking, you're imprinting the answers that are going to affect them the rest of their life. And you're going to be affected yourself, because your child is going to affect your life. So it's very important to understand this idea of changing your consciousness, being aware that you're changing your consciousness, being aware that there is so much depth to the child-parent relationship. It's much more than just, when you get into this capitalist system where we're just a society of strangers, and capitalism is this great solution to that. Money gets everybody to cooperate, even though they don't know each other. So it has its purpose. Capitalism creates cooperation between strangers. That's an effective tool for that. But it's not an effective tool for building a spiritual community at all. And so that's why we have religion. Religion is built into our it's built into humans the way that the beaver will build a dam, or an ant colony will build the underground fortress of ants. Every ant colony just boom builds another fortress underground. It's built in, and the humans have this. We build this. We have these spiritual roots, and we call it religion. It's a way of organizing ourselves, but it's an automatic process. That's why there's so many religions in the world. That's why there always have been. It's just the extended phenotype. It's probably that, whatever the technical term is that it ends up being the truth. Whatever's closest to the truth. We've seen this over and over and over. So call it what you want, but it's something that's built in. And all of the people practicing this faith of Bacchus, low key though it might be, it's still a religion. And it's going to help all of us of this similar philosophy gather together, organize ourselves, find the community that will protect us, that will support us, that will guide us, and that will help us enjoy our lives. So be aware when a child is talking to you exactly what's happening there, and be aware of how everything you're doing is important, and it's going to affect things. It's going to affect the way you feel, the way you experience things. And to finish the sermon, I just want to talk about the tribute, the idea of paying tribute to Bacchus. I do it in a very simple way. I have for a long time now. Essentially, if I'm having wine and I clang the glass to the bottle and I just say Bacchus, Dionysus. That's all I do. And I just try to connect to that spiritual roots, those spiritual roots that I know are real. The same way I know that the trees are connected to the ground by their roots, and there's that thing that makes it happen. There's that thing that makes us connect. And so you just try to get to that place, just low key. There's no need to start imagining these gods as these people or these creatures or these genies. There's no reason to start wishing for things. Just keep it simple. Just try to connect on the inside of yourself, your way, the best way that you can do it. Just try it. Try actually paying tribute to this thing that you spend so much time doing. All these shows you've watched, all these ideas that you've considered after you watched them, all the times that you've had a great time drinking or taking whatever you've taken. When you smoke a cigarette, when you vape, when you whatever it is you're into. Just try to get more control while you do it. Try to be more aware and then watch how you get power. You get power over yourself and you can connect to this thing that gives you a sense that, oh, that's what it is. That's where I want to be. I don't want to be chasing all of these things that are really just hedonistic pleasures, these empty, soulless sort of pursuits. I thank you for joining the Sermon of Bacchus once again, and I'll see you at the next sermon.